guess the first thing we want to know.
Came back from World War I when Fanny Bryce, Baby Snooks had her show. You remember that?
Yeah.
Sure.
And she had this Baby Snooks. I guess he screamed and hollered. Evidently I did too, so my aunt named me Baby Snooks, and I carried that name for a long time till I got into school. I had bangs. My sister used to decorate me up, but then the kids began to pull my hair and call me Snooky and everything, so finally I got large enough to get out from underneath that, but then I became a snook fisherman after that. Done a lot of snook fishing, and then that just carried it on, so most people think that's where I originally got it, but it wasn't.
Now, where were you born and raised?
Well, it's kind of a question. Where it's here or over in Cortez and around. We lived over on this side for a little while. And then,
when did your family first come to this area?
my family came here right after the Civil War. My grandmother was on Perico Island. That's where my mother was born. She was born on Perico Island in 1889. And then they were all back and forth around the islands out here. And I was born in Cortez, that's where. But then, you know, I spent most of my life over here on the island. My Aunt Sally, Jack Moore, they had that same pier right there. They had that back in the late 20s. And they lived out there. And
now, is this the Anna Maria City pier?
That's down. Before the war, now, Cortez and this island together, they had a population of 500. And that was mostly in Anna Maria. What little had on the island was in Anna Maria. And 400 of those were in Cortez. We used to have baseball games, played Anna Maria baseball. And we'd play right across that parking lot there now, across from Ernest. Old Mitch Davis, who was the first mayor of Anna Maria, he was always the umpire. Let me catch that for you. I'm expecting a call.
Picture from about 1947 of the island in Cortez, basically. Just repeat that. This wasn't on then. Let's go back from there.
And
the south end of the island had a more population and was larger down there in the late 20s and up to the early 30s in what is known now as Braden Beach. And they call it the West End. And in 1932, the bridge washed out. 1935, the hurricane came and washed those houses off across that, right over into the bay.
is that where Coquina Beach is now?
Yes. And it stayed that way, washed out, you know, until in 1956 when they pumped it back in 57, put the bridge across there. But back then they had playgrounds, they had a big thing on the bay side. You could go up with a, well, it was sort of a scooter board. You get up on that thing and scoot off into the bay, you know. And on the Gulf side they had automobile races over there. Round and round on the beaches. Those old regular racer cars.
Now you say the wooden bridge washed away. Did they build it up again then?
Not until 1957 when this. See, these three bridges for the island were all under the same program.
Oh.
And the DeSoto Bridge over in Brighton. The Cortez Bridge was opened on Memorial Day in 1957. The Anna Maria Bridge was opened on Labor Day of that same year, 1957. The now existing bridge is what we're talking about. And one on Longboat, it didn't open up until in the spring of 1958. It was completed at the same time they were, but the roads weren't opened up to it. They didn't get the roads built.
But in the 50s, we had that wooden bridge. The
Well,
wooden bridge.
we had the old Cortez wooden bridge, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was replaced in 1957. That's when they opened that up. Yeah.
So now, where did you go to school when you were
Right,
young?
Cortez.
In Cortez.
You see, the island didn't have anything. They had that school up here. Went to the 6th grade, I guess, 6th or 7th. Well, it went to the 7th because that's the same as Cortez. And then we all went from there, including the kids up here. All had an old bus. Bill Davis, Howard Davis, Mitch Davis's 2 sons, they used to drive the bus. And we went to Brighton into the school, which is now Manatee High. At that time, they went through the 7th, those 6th grades as high school went. We went through the 7th through we graduated. But the islands, you know, when you came over the old wooden bridge and you came up north, that was all old sand roads, shell roads. And they were all square, the corners were. You know, they still got the square corners on them. You see where they are, you know, down to where the old 5400 and them condominiums, there's a square goes across there. And down at the public beach, you go into the public beach there's a square. But then as traffic and cars became paved, they just rounded them out and cut those square corners off. And the reason that the old road is still crooked like it is because that was the high part of the island. You come along there where the golf park is, that old building, you remember the building?
Sure.
That used to be in the center of the island. But that doesn't mean that there was that much more beach out there because the water came right up to the road. And it did from, well, just north of Bridge Street, clear up to Manatee Avenue. There's still some of that in there now. Well, you remember some of that being pumped in.
Yeah.
And that's the way it was. You had to follow those curves to stay out of the water. And right where the shopping area is now, that was all water. You couldn't go through there.
So that's really why Golf Drive is so curvy.
That's the reason it's so curvy.
I heard it was a drunken Indian trail.
They followed the high ridge to stay out of the water. And when you came along, about this side of Duffy's, well, about where the Catholic Church is, from there all the way up to this area here, that was all farm. And they had horse and buggy carry them down to the beach and down to the pier there, and they unloaded. Those old steamships come in. The old Jesse B. Adams and Manatee, I remember those things very well. At that time in Cortez, if you wanted to order any supplies, you went over there to the dock, which is now the Coast Guard station. They had a little grocery store, had a delicatessen, they had a post office and mail order, everything that came in from Tampa. You went down and received it, you know, you'd already ordered it. Ordered from Sears, Roebuck, or wherever, pool halls, bowling alleys, the whole work. Of course, that in 1927, 28, that come to a halt. But I have pictures of the old steamboats somewhere here. I thought I had them. I missed them.
What's the worst storm you ever remember?
Oh, I think that one in 35 or 26. I can go back to the 21 here. And that storm was, I think as years go by, it got amplified, you know, more than what it. Now, it completely washed all of the waterfront down in Cortez, all of everything there. You've seen those old pictures. Shows the old Albion Inn, which is now the Coast Guard station, being washed in front of it all. But all that stuff was built right on the ground, and the old docks and piers and stuff that was built out there. They took these old pine saplings, just stuck them in the ground by hand, and built houses and stuff on them. Well, the high tide and stuff just washed them down. But the one that done the most damage here on this island was, it was the one that, I think it was 27 or 28, I don't know which year that was. But if you go over here now, on the ends of any of these streets here in Anna Maria, you know, you'll see that big swash down in there, and you go over, there's a sidewalk up against it before you go. Well, there was a street that came clear up to, which is now White Avenue here. And then went on through, went right across in front of the sandbar, and then came in again to that first street up there. What is that street that goes east and west across?
Pine would be one of them.
No, one on
Magnolia.
Magnolia. It went in and went up Magnolia. You had the diving tower out there, still was there for up to.
I remember the posts were.
Yeah, and they had a big old cable that you could pull yourself out there and come back with, but it wasn't that far off. And then they had playgrounds and stuff in front of the road out there. But,
So when you got out of high school, what did you do then?
I left. I had traveling in my blood, and I had a friend that was from, that came down here from Michigan. They had a big fruit farm up in South Haven or Glen, Michigan, and I'd go up there in the summertime. And then I got acquainted with some people that was involved in trucking, and I went to work for them over in Chicago and stayed there until the war broke out. From 36 to 41, I was in Chicago those times.
Were you in the service then?
I went in 4 years. My family, I have a big plaque issued us by Congress, is the only family in the United States that had 6 boys all in the service and all overseas at the same time. You never did see that?
No.
I'll show it to you. It's right here.
Oh.
Tell what that is, because that wasn't on camera when you...
Yeah, this is a congressional record for the six boys in my family, or was at that time in World War II. We were all overseas. We were all on the front lines at the same time, and presumably we were the only ones. They couldn't find no records of any more. The only ones they know that was there was 5 Sullivan brothers, and they all got killed. And
Right.
I remember that.
I remember that. Yeah.
I was there when they got killed.
Did you just get that recently, or?
Yes,
Looks like it says Lawton Charles.
it is. He's the one who got it through for us.
Oh.
They researched the records, and well, I got all the records up, which we'd had before, and we sent it through, and they got it passed.
Well, that's wonderful.
That's good, yeah.
So you had 5 brothers?
5 brothers.
Do you have any sisters?
Well, there was 9 of us.
Oh.
You can figure out how many girls there were. 6 boys and 3 girls. Yeah.
So then when you got out of the service, what did you do?
Well, when I got out of the service, my dad was in the fish business. There were Fulford Fish Company. You know, we owned all that property at the time. And none of us wanted to go back fishing. I never did do very much anyway. I was traveling, but none of the rest of them was interested in it. So they just spread out all over the country, and he sold it. And I came over here, back on the island. I was got into the construction business. All these rock drawings just put up, down through the island. That was stuff I was doing, working for the Island Erosion Board at that time. And Sam Adams got in, he a little bit. Bob Penstrom, you remember him, had the Coquina restaurant. And I finally bought all that out and did it myself. But all of these rock drawings, now the rock was contracted out. All of the piling was put down for the rocks to go in. I did all that. Clear on up all the way around the island. And then, I don't know, things got rough out here on the island. You couldn't park a car anywhere around the old Miramar and down around the Cove, which was then Todd's on the corner. I think that place's name's had several names. It used to be the Silver Dollar, and then it was eventually, I don't know what, I think it's Key West Willers now.
Right, the last, present name.
Yeah. But anyway, those places, you couldn't, they just had a group of people that was coming out here from the east part of the county, and they were bad. They'd throw, puncture your tires and throw bottles through the windshields. Roy Baden was sheriff at that time, so he came out here and asked me to become a deputy, get this mess straightened up out here. So I don't know why I let him talk me in that, but I did. I said, well, I'll do it if you let me pick 2 people that I want to work with me. So I got Rusty Taylor from Cortez. Man, he was a big guy. And Bud Hammett, he was working for the Braden Police Department. So, Bud worked for me later on out here. But
and Rusty still has the fish market, yeah.
Yes. But we cleaned her up, I'll tell you that. We got rid of it. But I told the sheriff then, I said, you break them. They were all out of Samoset and Onika, and place Bob's Corners up on 41 north of Palmetto. I told him then, I said, you break these, close these places up, they're going to scatter out everywhere. We won't know where they are till they've done damage. We finally got them all corralled, and I kept thinking about getting out of the police business, but then I got so far in it and involved in it that I just couldn't afford to back out there. But it was costing me money for the first 6, 7 years just to be in there. But I have no regrets. However, as soon as I was eligible for retirement, I took it and left, and I haven't looked back.
But you didn't tell us about when you were police chief in Holmes Beach.
Do I?
When you were police chief in Holmes Beach.
Well, see, I worked the whole island out here. One time I was the only policeman on the island. Well, they had Humbug Cobb. He was the, what they call it, was elected by the city here. Just somebody to fill in a job. And I think they had one up here in Anna Maria. I don't even know who that was now. But they weren't active. They didn't do anything. City marshals is what they were. And then when they asked me to come out here and take over this department here, which I did, then they revised their charter and done away with the city marshal. And I was the first chief of police they had.